integrated instruction, bringing it all together, professional learning session. I'm Kelly Stewart. I'm an Associate Dean for the Adult Education Program. I manage the Adult Education Grant, and I am joined here today by Dr. Nuria Sanchez, who is our Director for Instructional Services and supervises 3 of our locations. So we're just really excited to give you an overview of where we are today as a program. Many of you may know that we are at the end of a grant cycle. We recently applied for a new year grant cycle, so we're starting in 2025. Or I guess it's July 2024, and that will be a 4-year period that we now have contracted with the Department of Education. So we really know that during this most recently completing grant cycle, the 4-year grant cycle that's ending now, we have been building a lot of new programming. So for those of you who have been with the program for a while, you can remember maybe what it was like before we started this journey of integrated instruction together. And if you're new, then you have jumped in right in the middle. And so I just wanted to make sure that as we wrap up this program year, that we can really just do an overview, look at everything in alignment, and talk about what this means for our program going into the new grant cycle. And so I've been thinking a lot about this work, and what I see is that we've built it in this grant cycle that we're ending, and now we have to use it in this cycle that's starting. So we want to get students moving through the pipeline, and we've been using this braid that you see at the bottom of the screen as a way to show how we're interweaving our funding sources, our program areas, and overall the student service experience, so students feel like they're getting a seamless experience, even though they're participating in a lot of different program components that's supported by a lot of different teams. Hopefully you'll find in this slide that a lot of this is review. It won't be a lot of brand new information. So we'll really today focus on how to bring it all together and what the next program year brings for us. So with that, I hope everyone's settled, and I'm going to go ahead and move forward to the next slide. And so again, this one might be familiar with you, hopefully, and if not, then this will be a great place to start. We are, as a Title II adult education provider, we are a part of a workforce system. And so we've spent a lot of time thinking about graphics like this that show the adult learner in the middle of service providers who are helping to support their needs from multiple perspectives. So we have people like adult education programs or post-secondary institutions. We have funders who have mission alignment. We have the workforce development teams in our area, and we have employers. And so we're really looking at how do we accelerate learning, help working age adults complete credentials and training that will help them succeed in the workforce as it exists today and will in the future. And so we are under WIOA legislation, and under that law, we are to provide integrated education and training, which includes literacy activities, that's your adult education and your English language acquisition services. We provide 21st century workforce skills and workforce training that leads to industry recognized credentials. So that's kind of our starting point at this moment in time. And so we talk about where we go from here. So as being a core partner in the state workforce system, we are charged with helping to fast track adult education students toward in-demand or emerging industries. We want to leverage that funding to try to remove barriers for adult education learners. And we want to align with short-term credential programs that are stackable and create opportunities for future career growth. So these are really statewide system goals that we participate in, but we know we provide the academic services to help students grow in their academic credential attainment, their academic skill development, but it's all with the mission of working toward these state system goals. So here, this is another graphic that should be familiar to you, but it helps us to see how the three components work together. So the adult education classes, that's what we provide here at Rio Salado College Adult Education. We also, as an adult education program, Title II, we provide workforce preparation services. So we are trying to help students receive those employability skills, to increase their soft skills and help them to become prepared to enter the workforce at a higher level. And so as we provide those first two IET components, we have a third component, the workforce training, and we partner with other training providers mostly to help our students get a career credential concurrently while they're taking adult education classes. And so we often partner with our own college, with faculty within our own college to build those pathways. We are now working with our sister colleges to develop those opportunities for students. And then we do have a few non-credit programs, which you're aware of, like our NRF credentials, where we are teaching the curriculum, proctoring the exams, and students get a certificate, although there isn't credit, post-secondary credit attached to that. So you can see this graphic that we really like in working with our teams and then also with the other partners and stakeholders, because you can see how these three pieces work together. And I think I'm learning here. Maybe I'm going to turn this off actually. Okay. So what we are talking about today is how do we bring all this together to meet those goals as a core partner in the workforce system? And so I'm going to pass this over to Dr. Nuria, and she's going to talk a little bit about the contextualized curriculum component and how that has evolved over the last 4 years of this closing grant cycle to ensure that students are getting the skills they need to prepare for career training and achieve their high school equivalency diploma or improve their English language skills. So I'm going to pass it over to you now, Dr. Nuria, for you to go ahead and take us through what tools and strategies we will have in place going into the next grant cycle to ensure contextualized curriculum.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, everyone, for your patience as I troubleshooted my video. I'm working off of my phone and a personal laptop, and the office space that I'm borrowing does not have the desktop set up. So I'm making do with what I have. So thank you all for your patience, and I'll just introduce myself. My name is Dr. Nuria Sanchez. As Kelly mentioned, I do serve as a Director of Instructional Services, and a portion of what I do as well is to oversee our curriculum instruction and professional learning for the program. And so I'll be talking a little bit about our contextualized learning as it relates to our goal of bringing together all of the components of our program. So on the next slide, we'll start off just by talking about our orientation models. The first one is the HSC FCT, which you may have heard it referred to. This stands for High School Equivalency Fundamentals and Career Training, which is quite a bit. And we're still learning that acronym, but a goal of the HSC-FCT model is really to take this class where we want students to be able to complete their orientation or those success skills to help them be as effective as possible as they continue to engage with our program. They'll also complete their reasoning through language arts or English language arts and math fundamental curriculum. And so learning that those foundational skills as it relates to language arts and math. We also want them to complete their GED civics exam. And the goal with that is to help help students get a win early on, especially within those first 8 weeks that they're with the program. If students can see success and like, yes, I've already achieved one of the tests that I need to complete, it really does help them build that motivation and to see themselves as being successful with the rest of the exams that they may need to complete or other requirements to earn their high school equivalency. There's also digital literacy built into that 8-week class, and we also want them to earn an industry recognized credential through career training or those essential skills IETs, which if you're hearing IET for the first time, hopefully it's not the first time, but if it is, it stands for that integrated education and training. So we often refer to it as career training, as that's a phrase and terminology that our students can relate to a little bit more. And so you can see within this 8 weeks, we really are packing in quite a bit with the goal that our students are getting those success skills, that they're building their foundations as far as what many of them are likely understanding in terms of the GED exams with language arts and math, that they're passing an exam early on, that they're building those digital literacy skills. And at the end of the 8 weeks, they have an industry recognized credential that they can start to add to their resumes or as they go out to seek other career opportunities. What we want for our students to be able to achieve within this contextualized course is to get an initial test to progress test, again, pass that civics exam, earn that credential. And then how this supports our program goals is that if we're building in the success and these skills for students early on, the likelihood of us retaining them through that 40 hours is going to increase. We'll be able to progress test them to see, are they learning, from that initial test to that progress test. Our goal is to have students achieve an EFL and then also to continue to pass those GED exams. So we've found quite a bit of success with this model for the locations that have been able to implement it. And our goal is to continue this model in full implementation in the next fiscal year so that all students will have this experience through this contextualized course. Our other orientation class is called the English Success Class, or referred to as ESC. This is a comprehensive 4-day class, and during this class, the students are going to be introduced to their ESOL progression and what HSE opportunities are available for them. So we know that not all students in our English classes are thinking about an HSE. Many of them have diplomas from their home countries, and we are embedding into the new ESC that will be reviewed in the future. What are the opportunities that exist for students in terms of that career exploration? So you'll notice that in addition to our Burlington English curriculum, which is contextualized, the students are also exploring career during that 4-day orientation. They're building digital literacy skills. We get them logged into Burlington English right away, and we are stressing the importance of progress testing and understanding their scores. So for our ESOL learners, oftentimes they're keeping track of those scores because it informs when they get to move on to the next level. And moving levels can be scary for some. They may get comfortable within their classes or with their teachers, but we do know that they want to make progress in terms of their learning, and seeing them move from level to level is really exciting. So similar goals for our students in ESC. We want them to initial test. While they may not be progress testing within that first 4 days, again, setting that importance of what is the progress test? How do you read your scores? We're hoping to increase the likelihood of retaining those students so that they are able to progress test. We really want our students to achieve that ESOL level 3 and higher, because at that level, students are able to engage in our essential IETs. And again, that's a goal for our students, is that they are able to receive that industry recognized credential by participating in our program. So down below, you see again those program goals: help retain students to 50 or more hours so they can progress test, help them achieve an educational functioning level, which is to make progress from one level to the next, and then also to help support them through IELCE class advancement, which is integrated education. I'm missing the IELC, Kelly. I lost it right now. It's integrated education, civics,
Literacy, civics,
literacy.
yeah, and English.
Yes,
Integrated English, literacy, civics, education.
thank you. I know I had it somewhere, and I'm not able to see my notes because I lost access on my laptop. Again, the lovely aspects of digital literacy sometimes, or not digital literacy, technology, when it may or may not work. So that's part of how we're setting the stage early on for our learners, both in the HSC content and ESOL content, to have this contextualized curriculum. And on the next slide, we'll dive into what the contextualization is for our students once they move into those content classes. So for our HSC side, our grant approved curriculum is Connect 3. And if you're not familiar with Connect 3, the 3 C's stands for content, contextualization, and college and career pathways. So per WIOA, we are required to, in order to receive these funds, to contextualize our curriculum to career and college pathways for students. So the Connect 3 material has 16 contextualized lessons. 15 of them specifically are incorporating those different occupation and workforce skills. So an example here, and if you had an opportunity to participate in the Connect 3 training, you got to see a little bit of this as well through that material. If you've not gone through the Connect 3 training, those recordings are available, and I would encourage you to watch them. But an example would be in part of the RLA material. There is contextualization about an event planner. And in this term, the workplace skill that is being emphasized is flexibility. So as students are going through the Connect 3 material, they'll get to explore 15 different careers. And then within those, look at 3 specific career pathways, and they're engaging in those specific workplace skills that as many of us likely are aware, oftentimes those workplace skills are what sets apart a candidate from another. If they're able to be flexible, if they know how to manage time, if they're able to apply critical thinking, so we want to make sure that we are providing our students with these opportunities and really setting them up for success. And so on the HSC side, this is our contextualized curriculum through Connect 3. And then for ESOL, we as a program are using Burlington English, and all of the courses within Burlington English are standards based with English language proficiency standards. And again, many of us have gone through that training. If you have not received training on the English language proficiency standards, there will be an opportunity for that in the next fiscal year. But all of that is embedded within the courses available in Burlington English. The course, Burlington English also knows that we are funded through WIOA, and so the courses have an emphasis already on integrated education and training. And here's my where it's spelled out: integrated English and civics education, or IELCE. So these components are built into the lessons and the course units already within Burlington English. In addition to that, it's really setting up our students to be prepared academically. Civics is built in, there's career readiness, technology is built in, and there's also opportunity for digital skills development. The material also has that career contextualization with specific language that's used, with the communication that's built in, and there's also employability skills already built into the Burlington English curriculum. I know there's, for example, some of the lessons on civics are around the US exam, there's the government that's built in there, there's housing that's built in there. So Burlington English is a great resource that we have available as our program, and again, that is our curriculum that we are using that is contextualized to support our students. And then the last piece that I'll share is in regards to Fast Track. So there is training on the revised Fast Track that is going to be offered tomorrow. There is an AM and a PM session. So if your program is not offering a Fast Track, I highly, highly encourage you to attend that training session to learn a little bit more. But what I do want to just highlight for Fast Track is the goal is for those students that are ready based on their TABE scores to go test, or the students that already have 1 or 2 exams complete, and we know that they just need a little bit extra support to get them to that completion, that this is a curriculum that is available to our locations to support students through that process. So this is just an overview flow chart of how the student are selected, identified, the practice test that they will go through, and then an overview of what the students would complete. So if a student you've identified they're eligible, there's 2 weeks of language arts, 2 weeks of social studies, 2 weeks of science and writing, and then math, which we know can sometimes take a little bit longer. It can be anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks. And then that's where we would look at supporting the student through an exit interview, and again, identifying what career support can we continue to provide these students that have now earned their HSC diploma, because there are still opportunities for those students. So as we are working with those students that we've identified have scored high on their TABE scores, please know that this Fast Track model may also be an opportunity to support those students that are in the credit IETs. So we want to ensure that as students are working on the credit IETs and they're earning their credential, that they are also obtaining their high school diploma at the same time. Fast Track may be an option for those students, or it may be continuing with their content classes, or it may be receiving some one-on-one tutoring or other types of academic support or services that may help those students on a credit pathway to ensure that they're earning their high school diploma. And any other information, Kelly, that you'd like to add as it relates to our contextualized curriculum or Fast Track?
No, I don't have anything to add to the Fast Track, other than I did attend the a session with Neely earlier this spring, and I just thank her and the work group that's been able to continue to keep this Fast Track curriculum current and provide information to our team so that we can use the curriculum and identify the best models or strategies and ways to get this into the hands of our students to accelerate learning. And so as we transition out of the contextualized curriculum section, I do want to just go back because there were a lot of there was a lot of information. So there were 5 things we reviewed, and that was the HSC FCT for HSC students that are new to the program, the ESC that is for English language students who are new to the program. Then we have our 2 core contextualized curriculum components. That's Connect 3 for HSC students and Burlington English for English language students. And then finally, that 5th one that Nuria just reviewed was the Fast Track, and that is a specific curriculum and strategy to help students move through the program quickly if they are ready and prepared for that work. And so maybe there was one question that I saw in the chat or comment. Do we want to share that? And if you wish to engage during this session, feel free to put in the chat at this time anything that stood out to you about those 5 targeted curricular activities that we just reviewed. What are some of the qualities that are of all of those sessions that is noteworthy to you? What are the things that you see that are being emphasized in all of those components that we have diligently worked on over this past grant cycle and now are ready to lean into in the new grant cycle to try to move students, more students toward completion? And so I saw one hand go up. Was that Dr. Galda?
Yes, it was.
Go right ahead.
Well, I just wondered in the model that the fast track model that Nuria just shared, when are, if they, I know at regular sites that they can TABE right away, and if they're moved into the fast track instead of foundations, how do they achieve their civics or their IET? Or do they? Do you wait until the very end where it says that they're doing, more along the pink square there?
Yeah, and I see Neely has her hand up, and I'll let Neely respond because she was the lead in revising this material, and the Surprise location has been implementing this model successfully for quite a few months. So Neely, do you want to go ahead and share, and then I'll add on to your response?
Thank
And I'll
you.
be really quick because Duffy, if you can come tomorrow when
Oh,
I
I will, yeah.
present, then I will definitely go over that as well. But yeah, there are students that will enter fast track for maybe certain subjects and not other subjects. So you have to kind of be flexible with your students and what their needs are. And that, of course, is a location decision. As far as civics and the IETs, our students that do get fast tracked that enter the cohort, even though their content area is fast tracked, we do require that they still attend the IET. So for example, my location that piloted some of the fast track content area, they still had to attend their normal IET class on every Thursday during that first 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay.
So that they had the credit or the essential IET accreditation, and then the civics as well, because we do have all the civics content during that first 2 weeks of like the GSC orientation or Welcome to Rio orientation stuff. So we are requiring that they still complete those two within the first 6 to 8 weeks, as well as be exposed to or move into the fast track depending on their content. So same expectation, just maybe different content going forward. But yeah,
I
same
appreciate
expectation.
We've experimented with a couple of different ways, and I was wondering if you guys had come up with maybe one overall plan for all of us. But I'll tomorrow. Thank you so much, Neely.
Thanks, Dr. Duffy, and thanks, Neely. And yeah, I know Neely will share a few different models because even this kind of overall ideal state would be if you're, like it says, proceed to foundations, or you're moving into these classes. So you may or may not have an instructor that's able to offer this format. It may look a little bit different at your location. So I think that's where it'll be really helpful to see the different models that Neely will share tomorrow. And for teams to think about what could this look like at our locations. Do we have an instructor that can teach this model? Will we do maybe a short boot camp of just the language arts based on the students that we've identified, or maybe we'll do that for the math. So we'll definitely learn a bit more when Neely shares next, or tomorrow. I wanted to say next week, but it's tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you both so much. And I appreciate the context that you're providing here. Fast Track has been a concept that's been in our program for many, many years. It's looked different over the grant cycles. It did kind of go to sleep a little bit during the pandemic because of the nature of how we were providing instruction to students. Now that we've kind of pulled out of that period. I know some locations have been able to get back into the fast track with that focus on high level students specifically. But we really want to maximize this pathway, which is why I have it included in this presentation about what the next grant cycle brings for us, because we really want to re-engage this fast track. We want to expand the number of student groups that are participating in a fast track option. And I agree with Neely in saying it will vary from location to location, and there's or it might even vary from student group to student group. And so that's the work that is coming next is how do we activate this fast track curriculum in different ways to help students move faster through the program. So great information here. Thank you all for your collaboration. And thanks to all of our instructional teams who have been working hard to make these 5 program components possible to really build up our contextualized curriculum under the new WIOA grant requirements. We have some fantastic resources to use with our students and as we enter the next grant cycle. And so we really want to talk about how do we increase the number of students moving through these activities. So that'll be the starting point for our conversation. And so in addition, we've gone over what the workforce ecosystem looks like for us in Arizona. We've gone over the primary contextualized curricular components that we have available that we want to use to move students through the pipeline. And then we have this third, really the second and the third part of the IET, which is the career training integration, which for us includes employability skills training. So we're going to talk about this. And again, this hopefully will be some of a review for you. I did pull slides from different presentations that we provided this spring. We did create updates as needed. But for example, you'll see on this slide that we really have designed a formal career training model for our students to participate in. And so you can see that as we communicate with the larger audience, we want students to know that you start your adult education classes, you have an opportunity early on to choose an essential skills career training class. As you move along and achieve some of those early milestones, then you can have the opportunity to move into a credit-bearing training program or explore adult ACE. And we have financial support to help students overcome those financial barriers, but it does require co-enrollment in multiple program components. And so that is some of the heavy lift that we take on in order to remove that financial barrier from students. And then finally, we have the HSC attainment and credit program completion. And so you can see that we're really trying to consolidate this information. We're trying to help our students and our teams to understand that this is a pathway for our students, even though on a day-to-day basis, it might feel like there's a lot of, separate teams and strategies. How do we bring all that together to make it that seamless experience? Part of our career training, planning, and development work has really been guided by the Maricopa County Community College District Fields of Interest. There are 9 across the district, and we've identified 4 of those 9 that we have developed on-ramps and pathways for adult learners so that they can co-enroll in adult education classes and career training. So you see the 4 listed here on the screen. We have continued to develop, and I know this is small print, but what we do just to show you how we strategically design these pathways for our students. Here are the fields of interest. We have the business, entrepreneurialism, and management, the applied technology pathway, the computer and information technology pathway, and the health sciences pathway. Each of the pathways starts with some kind of an on-ramp, often a non-credit, a prep course. This is always under development in the adult education space because we're responding to real needs. We're responding to what do students need? What do faculty need from students when they start the program? And as we develop new IET programs, we're always modifying these on-ramps to meet the needs so students are prepared as they start that credit program activity. Now, this particular graphic is becoming a little dated, and we'll be working to update it for the new program year. But you can see that as you move down the pathway from the on-ramp, the prep courses, you get into the stackable nature where we have, the NRF credential. We have a number of applied technology IET programs that students can participate in. We have the MOS Word non-credit credential that students can earn, which leads to some of our stackable credit programs available through Rio Salado College. We have the medical administrative assisting IET with a pre-course, a prep course on-ramp that helps our students review and understand the specific items that they have to be prepared to use and understand as they start with that faculty in the credit program. So we want to provide that wraparound support. We want to take students who maybe don't think of themselves as college students and help them become college students. And we want them to be lifelong learners. We want them to continue to stack their credentials. So as they enter the workforce, they can be lifelong learners. They can join a training cohort at work. They can review the technical manuals and study up for opportunities to advance in their field. They can enroll in other college programs that use these introductory courses as prerequisites. So we are very strategic to ensure that all of our students have the skills that they need to be successful in career training and beyond. And so here I share this, and this was in the December PL meeting that we had together program-wide. But just as a reminder, we do pull data, local workforce data, to help us understand which industries are in demand or emerging that have stackable credentialing opportunities and that have growth potential in that industry with a livable family sustaining wage. And so a lot of research goes into this. And here you'll be able to see, later also when we share this presentation out, some of that data that we gathered even this program year that supports our selection of career pathway development for our students. And you can see that these are not pathways that students may think of for themselves, but we want them to know that these are growth opportunities. And if they are willing to explore one of these pathways, we will support them in pursuing that and growing and reaching careers and jobs that are in demand. There are employers at the end of these pipelines ready to hire. And we're working to partner with those employers too, so they know that we are credentialing students, and we know our students will have employability skills, they'll have basic reading and math skills, they'll have basic English skills or advanced English skills, and we want them to have confidence in the students who are completing our programs. And so this brings us back to this diagram, and here's one remaining that didn't fit on the slide for information technology. But again, you see this diagram and it all comes together. This is the integrated instruction, the integrated education and training that we've developed, and we want our students to use to grow and excel in their own personal careers. And so as we go into the new grant cycle, really all of these graphics that we just showed you have culminated in a new version of a graphic that now is being shared across our local workforce region, across the state. We're using this graphic to help employers understand, help the Department of Education understand, partners, other community colleges, all of those stakeholders. We want them to see how integrated education and training is a pathway to supporting local industry needs and changing people's lives. And so you can see that there's a lot of career training activities going along this curriculum. Here you can see under readiness and industry skills, this is adult education and literacy. So many of you are teaching, HSC test, preparation, English language preparation classes, and that's where this falls right here. It's an essential skill that our students need to participate in the rest of this continuum. So I wanted to share this with you because this is something we share externally with our stakeholders, and we spend a lot of time talking about, and it's a great succinct way for us to understand the work that we do and how it impacts the community around us. And so here's something more new for us. So moving students through the pipeline. So again, we're closing a grant cycle, we're opening a new. What do we do in this new grant cycle? We're going to be moving students. So we talk about this pipeline. I love this visual. We have registration and intake. Many of you work on helping students get situated. If you went to the recent graduation, I love how many of the students were talking about that moment when they came in the door and they were welcomed, they were included, they were supported, which is not an experience they've always had in education. And you make that difference. You help students persist past that first 12, 20, 40 hours when we have a high attrition rate. We have many of our students who drop out historically from 20 to 40 hours. And we want to make that early experience on the pipeline one that they remember, one that makes them want to continue, feel excited about the work that they're doing. And we want to have frequent and early milestones so that they can achieve success, know that they can do this, and then they'll continue down the pipeline where there's a lot of resources and opportunities waiting for them. We know that in Arizona, there's approximately 700,000, sometimes I see higher numbers than that, eligible adults in Arizona who would qualify for our programs, who lack the basic skills needed to reach high supported roles, family sustaining wages, and growth potential in the workforce. And so our role is to help them move through this pipeline and reach this goal, which will, again, support employers, our economy, as well as individuals. And so in fiscal year 24, and this is as of May data, so we know that there's likely to have a little bump there as we bring in June data, but we had 5,398 students served as of May in fiscal year 24. That is a big number. That's a larger number of qualified students than we've had, at least in recent years that I'm aware in the program. And next year, as we start the new grant cycle, we're going to be looking at 5,800 students to serve per year. So we do have the community demand to do that, but our work is that we have to be highly efficient, highly effective. We have to support each other in our roles and coordinate services well so that all of these students who are coming to us can get what they need and move on to achieve other goals. And so we have milestones all along the way. We have academic milestones, initial testing. We want to get EFL gains. We want to get MSGs, which I listed separately because EFLs are different than MSGs. In some cases, EFLs are specific to academic progress on the TABE assessment. MSGs you can earn in many different ways, including through career training and passing GED subject tests. We have career training milestones like completing the career interest assessment, pipeline AZ profile development. We have the career plan, which is a newer feature that we're building into to support students. IET enrollment, IET component completion, and then finally completion milestones. And this is where we really see our students get ready to fly. They've completed industry credentials. They've earned their high school diploma. They have credit-bearing credentials as well, and they are employed the second or fourth quarter after exit. We also measure increased median wages. So some of these other employment goals, those are system-wide goals that the system is measuring, and our students contribute to that statewide attainment. And so we have strategies. These are the strategies we've gone through today. We have career contextualized instruction, which Dr. Nuria was presenting. We have career training integration, which are those pathways aligned with the fields of interest that I shared. We have wraparound support services, which we won't go into in detail today, but many of you work to get resources into the hands of students. We did talk about reducing the financial barrier, which is certainly a supportive service that we can offer to students. And then case management and coaching, which is something we've been talking about quite a bit this spring and continues to be an important strategy to help students move through all of these stages and achieve milestones at the end of their time with us. And so as we think about how to get students prepared for career training, we have a college and career prep on-ramp. So this is the work students are doing with our college and career navigators, our occupational instructors. The transition we're seeing in the new grant cycle is that some of this work that has always taken place with navigators is now being streamlined into a more an experience that is combined and is not in individual one-on-one meetings. And so in the new year, you'll see more students be invited into this specific 10-week course where they get to continue their work in developing those 21st century skills. They're preparing for college level coursework, and they're able to gain skills while they wait for the credit IETs to start. So this is a really interesting way that the navigators and the career services team have been able to consolidate their efforts and to serve more students at a higher rate, and more information coming about that. Here, instructional teams will still be helping to vet and approve students who are entering the CNC prep course. So rather than vetting students individually for every IET, you would be vetting students for the CNC prep course where they will do further vetting with the team that leads those courses or those activities. So a lot of new development, or what I'll say is it's really taking things that we've developed in small areas and pulling them together to make a more comprehensive experience is really what you'll see in the coming years. And so we're really looking at aligning our work. We have the student services positions, we have instructional positions and the roles that each play. So we really want to be taking time now to think about what this case management, coaching, integrated instruction, what does it mean for student services positions and instructional positions? You both play a critical role. And so we've had conversations through the spring so that we can tease that out and understand roles. We have defined roles at this point, and we're really working to train and reduce barriers to successfully implementing these roles. And so we see things like student services positions monitoring and scheduling progress test scores, and the instructional positions are reviewing those scores to determine academic levels and for targeted instruction. You have student service positions tracking attendance and supporting persistence. Instructors are supporting persistence and academic development advancement through differentiated instruction. You have student services positions supporting pipeline AZ and developing career plans, and instructors are monitoring and identifying instructional needs that are part of the career plan. And then you see at the bottom, both groups have a case management function, but it does vary slightly in that one is focusing on the action plans needed related to student services and referrals, and instructional teams are implementing action plans that are needed for academic goals and milestone achievement. So we're really working to clarify those roles, help people to understand what they're working on and what their colleagues are working on. So again, we can make that a seamless student experience. Case management and coaching. Here is a little bit of information about how you can think about case management and coaching as being similar or different. During case management, when you have meetings at your location, you're looking at student data, you're making data-driven decisions, you're identifying interventions, areas of needs, and you're prioritizing students based on their goals and needs. And then once you have that data and you've identified the interventions, now you start working with the student. You are developing and implementing and monitoring an action plan with them. You're discussing with the student, and you're making adjustments along the way as the student's needs change or grow. We have been talking about the coaching in action. And so Rio Salado College is very active in the plan, do, check, act cycle. And so this is, this really means that you're always engaging, you're always coming back around. So once you work with a student to identify interventions, you're doing the interventions, you're checking the interventions, and then you may find that there are modifications that are needed. Students may achieve something, so you have to shift to another area, and you're back around to your planning and doing and checking again. So we want you to be active, not passive in supporting learners. We want you to take a direct approach We want you to foster and accelerate progress towards success using the strategies and tools that we have developed so strategically to this point. And so at the College Planning Day, if you were able to attend, we looked at an example student who was John Smith. We assigned some qualities to John Smith. You know, this individual was an HSE student, enrolled at a location, part of an MAA cohort, is working through that cohort, is in the 3rd class, has good standing, and has passed 3 of the 5 tests. And so we had practiced in that previous meeting, what are some of those interventions that we would want to pursue with John Smith, and what are some of the milestones that we want to help guide him to in future classes. And so here again, you see that plan. The College and Career Navigators is working on the HSE Progress Intervention Plan. We don't want John Smith to finish his MAA and not have his high school diploma. We want him to have both of those credentials. So we want to go ahead and shore up strategies to make sure that he is also completing his HSE requirements in addition to the MAA requirements. We have strategies. So here's our do. We're going to email the student. We're going to schedule meetings. We're going to work with our counterparts or colleagues, and we're going to have a strategic plan to help the student move. We're going to follow up. We're going to make sure that we have a date to check in later, see if the interventions are working, make modifications, and if needed, reevaluate and develop new action items to take forward with the student. So hopefully during the spring semester, you've had a chance to practice, you've been working with your colleagues, you have a more solid understanding of what coaching and action looks like in our program, and we're ready to jump in and really start moving students through that pipeline. And so I'm going to stop sharing my screen right here, and we're going to take some time to collaborate around an activity together. I don't know if I should pause for a minute. If you have any specific questions that you'd like for us to address as we return after the activity, we'll take about a half an hour to work through the activity in small groups. And then we'll come back together, and we would like to take some time to debrief. So if you can please take some notes. I believe Dr. Nuria will be as she provides instructions for the activity, we'll be sharing a Jamboard for you to take notes. And then when you come back, we'll have a chance to just hear from you. And if there are any questions that got added to the chat, we'll be sure to address those as well. Keep in mind that at the College Planning Day, we did a similar kind of case management, coaching, planning activity, but you are working with your other colleagues at your location. In this practice session, you'll be working with people randomly from other locations. So I really ask for you to tune in to maybe some of the similarities and differences that you're seeing after having a semester to practice this work with your teams. And we'll be curious to continue to build on those best practices, share strategies, and really see what is the most effective as we start working with students in the new program year. So go ahead and add any questions to the chat for us to collect, and I'm going to pass it over to you, Dr. Nuria, to go ahead and explain the activity and how we'll work through that together. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. So let me share my screen. Oh, that's not what I want to do. All right. So as Kelly was mentioning, we want to do some practice around how we can engage in this plan, do, check, act to create an intervention for our learners based off of what we're identifying in case management as students that have needs for a targeted intervention. And as we engaged in these types of activities during the College Learning Day, it was around 40X. So if you'd like to approach it with that lens as it relates to the lead measures that you all have been engaging in, feel free to do so. Or as you engage in the data, if you identify, let's maybe focus on this students because they're close to passing one of their HSE exams, and or GED exams, and we'd really like to get them making progress in that area sooner than later. So in the activity, what we're going to ask is for you to go to Odin, and I'm hoping that your location PM or ISS or ISM has shared your location's Odin data, or that spreadsheet where you can find all of the information as it relates to students at your location. If not, please let me know, and I can likely share the drive and give you view access. Just please click on your specific location. But Kelly did mention you are going to be with individuals that are not from your location. So if one of you has access, maybe that's the person that you identify of, let's look at the students at your location. You are then going to pick one student that, as you review the data, you are identifying they would really benefit from a targeted intervention. You'll then create an action plan using Plan, Do, Check, Act, and use the FY25 action plan template, which we'll share here in a bit, so that you can start practicing what this is going to look like moving into FY25 to create a plan for a student. And then once you've done that, of going through, you identify a student, you identify what intervention you'd like to implement, you fill out the form. We'd like you to discuss as a group, what are some of the things that are similar in terms of the activity that you're doing at your locations? And then also, what are some of the things that are either similar or different that you're doing from location to location? So if you have 3 locations in your breakout group, we'd love you to talk about, like, in our case management meetings, these are the activities or these are the types of conversations that we're having. And then, like we mentioned, there is going to be an opportunity to debrief, and we'd love to hear from you all at that time. Did I stop sharing my screen? Did it disengage, or are you all still seeing the activity?
It did disengage, and I was seeing a white screen at one point. So maybe we can drop the activity prompts into the chat, or I think maybe the Jamboard has the activity prompts there for you to review when you get there.
Yeah. It's so
This is Dr. Tasha. I could only see a black screen. It just said Dr. Nuria is sharing her screen, but my other teachers with me in the office, they could see it just fine. So I don't know if it was just some computers weren't seeing it because Kelly didn't, I didn't. I'm not sure, but I'll follow whatever directions they give me.
Let me try again. I tried moving from one, the internet here seems to be spotty. So let's see if this works. Are you able to see it now?
I can see it now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So I'm going to be dropping in the chat the link to the Jamboard, and I'll do that here in a second, but let me first explain what you'll be doing in the breakout groups. So you're going to be assigned to a breakout group by color. So you'll notice that on the background of each of these pages, there's a color. So there's gray, green, yellow, blue, purple, and pink. You should have about 4 to maybe 6 different staff in your breakout group. And so you'll go to your page based on the color of your breakout group. So when you go into your breakout group, if you see it says gray, then you'll be working on the gray page. If your breakout group says green, then as a group, you'll be working on green. If you've not used Jamboard before, on the left-hand side, there's a set of tools. I recommend using the text box tool, which once it's engaged, you'll see it kind of lights up in a different color. In this case, it's gray. And then it'll let you create a text box. And so here I would enter the student name. So let's just say it's me. And you'll notice because of how I created the text box, it's moving over. You can extend that text box, and you can also make it smaller if you're really like detailed and want it to fit in there perfectly. but that's how you can add to this action plan template. So at the top here, you'll notice there's a few different sections. We have the student profile with the academic goal. So this is where you would list that academic goal. And then there's a space for that intervention plan. So when did you create it? So we'd all have today's date. What might be some follow-up dates? You might need to come back to this once you've talked about what the plan's going to be. Who is that success team? So again, if you're working from based off of the downtown location, you identify who's the coach there, who's the instructor or instructors that are going to be supporting this intervention plan, who's the navigator. Again, if you've identified a need based on one of the lead measures, you can select these, or if you have something else that you want to work on, you can I wouldn't select the, I think this might need to get updated and should say like other, but you could list it here. If you're able to pull this data in terms of how many attendance hours do they have they completed an essential IET, are they enrolled in a credit IET at this time, or just other pertinent details that would help as it relates to the plan. And then here's where that information about the plan itself is going to go. So what is it that's being done? Who exactly is doing what? Where and when is this happening? So, you know, is a student being assigned an essential ed lesson? They're doing it on their own time? Are they coming in and tutoring and reviewing that plan together, or the progress on their plan together? And then how is it being conducted and monitored? And then what may be some barriers that either the student is experiencing or may experiencing that, again, we want to make sure that all are aware of in terms of that success team. And then we won't have any progress notes, because these progress notes would come after the intervention, or as you are engaging in the intervention, like what's the progress that has been made on this specific plan. So this is what you'll do within your breakout. And so let me stop sharing really quick so that I can drop that link in the chat, and at the same time open it up for any questions that you may have before we put you into breakouts. Okay.
If you find you're done and people start coming back to the main room, then we can always pull people in earlier, but hopefully the time will be.
Okay. All right. Well, I will send you to breakouts.
Are we making our way back?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, welcome back, everyone.
Is 30 minutes enough time or not? Not enough time to discuss a student?
We didn't have a problem discussing the student. What we struggled with is that there's not enough information in the Odin sheets to do anything other than just copy and paste it into the form. So we spent the entire time just looking for where is the information. And we never even really got to the case management piece in the purple group. We tried. I mean, we were trying as we were trying to get, you know, the wheels going. We were like trying to talk about it, but it was really challenging. So it's Dr. Brandon, I think, has some suggestions to put forward that might make it easier.
Yeah. And oh, Ellen's lost audio. Is everyone else able to hear? I could hear Dr. Tasha, but I'm not sure. Okay. Let me put that in the chat then. And then well, thank you, Dr. Tasha, for that feedback. And this is exactly the type of information we are hoping to get from the group as we practice, because this will be a goal of a future stage for us to develop. Oh, to develop these intervention plans for our students and looking holistically within that success team. So I saw Dr. Amy had her hand up, and then we'll go to Dr. Brandon based off of what Dr. Tasha shared, and then we'll go to Phyllis. So we've got 3 in a row. Go ahead, Dr. Amy.
Thank you. I think that by the last 5 minutes of our 30 minutes, we really started getting the ball rolling. But I think we were all like on this learning curve of what Odin was trying to tell us. And once we figured it out and I started filling out the form a little bit, the form's a little bit, it's almost restrictive in some ways. But you know, we can work with it. But I think what was really beneficial though is that as a group, we were all trying to piece together what was the situation with the student we had identified, you know, and brainstorming, well, what could be some of the reasons that, you know, the student isn't doing what he needs to be doing or what have you. Regardless, it really was, for me, it was a really positive exercise on how beneficial it is when several people can talk about a student. Sometimes when it's just your student, you're a little too close to home and you need some outside thinking. But I did find that some information would have been really helpful in Odin, like looking at, did the student even take a GED ready test and what was the score? And it's just, you know, it's always a long line in these really big spreadsheets until you finally get to the information that you're looking for. But I think the intervention sheet is a good start. There are some, you know, it tries to have a one size fit all kind of thing. And I know that that's what we're really trying to find a way to find that consistency. The what are you doing? What were you doing? Where were you doing it? Sometimes that doesn't fit the intervention that we need to work with. But anyway, it was a good it was a good discussion and a good opportunity to practice this. So thank you.
Thanks for that feedback, Dr. Amy. And so when you mentioned that the form was restrictive or a little bit difficult to work with, was that Odin or the action plan, or is it both? Because I heard you say for Odin, scrolling is difficult because there's a lot of data within that spreadsheet. So
Yeah, so Odin is like a really long pier and you're not really sure where you are. I got lost a little bit in there, trying to figure out where the information is. You know, it took me a while to learn the student directory and now I know exactly where everything is, but this is really the first real look I had at Odin, and it'll come. I'm sure we're all going to have some stuff in there that we want to see a little bit different. I would like to see if the GED ready scores could be put in Odin, because that's helpful for a whole bunch of reasons, like applying for scholarships for students, things like that. But the one size fit all kind of thing was for the intervention form. You know, sometimes we want checkboxes because checkboxes make it a fast look, but sometimes when you're trying to figure out a problem with a student that's not just strictly, I can't get the student to take a test. Sometimes those interventions don't fit into those boxes. So maybe there needs to be an opportunity to just have some free comment that maybe says, can you address these elements? I don't know. It's just a first time look, first time use. Thank you.
yeah, thank you, Dr. Amy. And yeah, this is exactly the type of information that's helpful, because we will be using this template for a variety of different students that need interventions. And so if it's not quite meeting the data or information that we'd like to collect regarding the student and the intervention that they need, we appreciate that feedback so we can look at how we can adjust it. And we understand it's the first time you all are using it, because it is the first time that we're sharing it with the team. So we really do appreciate you all diving right in and approaching it as best you could with the information available to see how can you create a plan for students. And Dr. Brandon, I believe you're next to share some of your feedback. Or
yes, thank you. Yeah, in our group, one thing that would have been nice is if we have all this information feeding into Odin, if we could have it feed into these forms or feed into a way where we wouldn't have to spend all this time being duplicative, just transferring a number over to this sheet and transferring, you know, it back and forth whenever we've already set up a system to auto feed this information. Two, of course, me, Dr. Tasha, Eliza, we were like, oh, well, we could just look this up in Adams. And then it was like, well, no, we have part-time instructors in our group as well who aren't as familiar with navigating Adams. And so there was information like, well, how many hours has he had, not just in the FY, but is he ready to progress test? Is he close? Is this student pretty far away from testing? And so that kind of thing. Another thing that would have been important to be able to answer the questions on the career plan: what domains in the test does he have non-proficiency in, and what domains does he have proficiency in? Because we were all talking about, well, it's really hard to make an intervention strategy for a student you don't know at a location we're not teaching at, just off the information in Odin. And so I can't, like, you can't see, well, is it listening? Is it, we were looking at an ESOL student. All we could see is EFL attained or not on the test. And we had no idea which domain in the Class E test were areas for improvement, where we could get a gain. Another thing is, I know that we mentioned in our 40X meeting last week about thinking about how close they are in the either TABE 11-12 or the TABE Class E to getting that gain, and kind of really focusing on those students that are kind of close. And there was some discussion about that. Well, it's really difficult in Odin to even know. We know if they passed or not, if they have a gain or not, but we don't know if they were 100 points from getting the gain or 1 point from getting the gain. It's just red or green, yes or no. And so it would be kind of nice to be able to see, like, well, how big is the delta between where they are and where they need to be? So auto feeding, being able to see how many hours until their next test, that's not total hours of attendance in the FY, and then being able to see how close are they to that next EFL. That would all be helpful.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Brandon. And I appreciate the summary at the end as well, the three kind of big takeaways from what would help make this more efficient and a better use of that success team's time when discussing students, because we all know we need more time. So as much as we can make this more streamlined, that would be great. And then Phyllis?
Hello, hello. Hey, so one of the things I notice is that there's no table key. For me, a new user, it looked like I would like to use a table key to understand what all these acronyms are, because that blows me when I see that. Number two, the student came aboard, oh God, I think January, I think. So if the student did a career plan, or, you know, did they do it? And then did they self-identify some challenges? Is it captured in there? Can we see that so that it is relevant to us to know pre-existing identified challenges that that person has? Because that is captured from the career plan. Also, their language, clearly a language barrier that was not identified, that could have been very assistable too. So those are some of the things that I saw.
Thank you, Phyllis. And Phyllis, can you share with us what location you're at and what content you teach, or if you teach?
I don't teach. I'm actually a student success coach, and I am at Partners MVLA.
What it is. Okay, I was like, I know. I was like, where? I'm usually working with the instructional team, so I was like, maybe she teaches at a location that I don't get to visit. But
I would only teach bad things now.
Thank you, Phyllis. Great meeting you. Others that would like to share? I know we're getting up to the 2 o'clock, but we'd really love to hear any additional feedback. Dana, I saw your physical hand come up. Go ahead. You're muted, Dana.
Thank you, Phyllis, for saying that. So one of the things that we noted for the student that is like, there was no career plan, but also I want to also say for the key, also what the colors mean for the students. So red means, you know, need a test. Purple means, yeah, we were kind of like, what's purple? And purple means, if you scroll over, it means that, you know, they've stopped out, but having just a little legend or something at the bottom might be helpful. And then the other thing we were talking about is we identified that the best intervention for this student may be we have a discussion with them because we looked it up at Adams that the scores are so low that it's possibly an ESOL student. And that might be the better. So then at that point, and does this form then transfer to the ESOL side? Is that how this would work? Or do they have to do a whole new one if they have that meeting with the student?
I think that would be dependent on the locations and how you're having these meetings. So one thing that we've discussed is like these plans would get developed during your case management sessions. So if your entire, like I shouldn't say the entire, depending on who is attending your case management sessions, that could be a conversation to have between the content areas of, you know, if you've looked at this and identified maybe HSC isn't the best and the student would really benefit from some development within their English skills, that you would be discussing that collectively, even though that might mean the instructor that's going to be assigned may be the same, or it may change, or it may be adding on another instructor to support the student through that intervention. So I think that'll kind of depend location to location. But that's definitely an effective practice if you had the opportunity to discuss that piece of what are some of the commonalities between locations or differences as you engage in case management meetings relating to you know, who's attending. So if you have your entire instructional team, the full-time instructional team and the coaches and other operational staff, that you can engage in those types of questions. And I see we're getting close to time, so I'll pass it over to Kelly for any final thoughts regarding the information today.
Yeah, thanks so much, Nuria, and everyone who shared and engaged in that work. Really, this experience was intended to just give us more practice. So although I think we could continue to share information that we learned within our groups or strategies that will help us work toward that efficiency that Dr. Brandon mentioned, we really do value this time to think, work together. This will set us up for success going into the new program year, going into PL Day, where we'll have more opportunities to engage. But we just really want to think deeply about how we get this work done. And so just thank you for taking some time to set aside, you know, your thoughts and work with other people to think about how we're going to move forward in the new year. I really just have this one closing thought. And I'm glad that I put this at the end, because I think that the tools that we're using is an important part of that efficiency in moving students through this pipeline. So as we discussed today, we have these curricular, you know, tools that we can use. We have some strategic opportunities through the career plan, through community partners and scholarships to help support students as a tool. And then this is really the one we were looking at today with Odin. And so what I want to share is that we are going to be going through a transition. Right now, Odin was developed to help consolidate where all the data is. We often have to go to lots of different spaces to get the data that we need, but Odin pulls all that together. So although it's really long and kind of cumbersome and tedious, all that data is in one place. So we're hoping that, you know, scrolling down that line will be a little more simple than going into lots of different databases to try to collect the data. But what I want to share with you is that Odin, and then also SharePoint, where we typically put a lot of student notes, is really their stepping stones toward the Rio Compass project. And so Rio Compass, excuse me, will be the ultimate way for us to have full integration with the college systems. Rio Compass will allow our team members to add data, notes. Certainly some of the suggestions that you brought forward today are things that we want to make sure we're creating space for, creating a way for you to see everything all together in a way that really helps you as a member of that case management team to support the students. And the wonderful thing about Compass is that ultimately down the road, there will be a student view for Compass as well. And so we'll all be working in the same platform to collect our tools, resources, milestones achieved. And I thought there were some great suggestions that came out so far today. So although our conversation ends now, we just really want to encourage all of you to continue to share your ideas, continue to bring practices forward that are working to your professional learning communities, to your location meetings. And if you find things that are potential improvements that we can make as we make this our way through the Odin and SharePoint into Compass later on, please bring that information forward. I know Michael Benben is the person who really leads the Odin project and did the hard work of consolidating all of these different databases into one sheet that you could use, kind of at a glance. But certainly there's opportunities to continue to grow and improve that function. And then also, the Compass will really bring all those pieces together. So I close with this. I just really thank you all for letting me share my thoughts and kind of how I'm thinking about how all this comes together with you. I just encourage you to keep talking with one another. I look forward to our summer and fall meetings. And with that, I just say thank you to you all. I hope you have a wonderful no class days week where you can learn and talk together, prepare, maybe take a break. We have admin week next week. I hope you all have a wonderful 4th of July holiday out of the office, and then we will hit the ground running come July 8th again. And we just really appreciate all the work that all of you are doing to make this possible for our students, for the program, and for our local workforce system. So thank you for your time, and thanks for everyone who contributed to this presentation. I'm going to stop sharing and we can wave and have a great afternoon, everyone.
And really quickly, please don't forget to complete the
please.
And reflection form. There is integrated instruction bringing it all together. If you have additional feedback that you weren't able to share as part of the debrief, please feel free to add it to the comments on the PL attendance and reflection form, and Kelly and I will be reviewing that if you didn't have an opportunity. But thank you, everyone. It was great spending these 2 hours. They went by pretty quickly. And
thanks for the commitment of time. Have a great afternoon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. It was really good. Bye-bye.
Feedback.